Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the January version of the Jackson Insight Group study on The King of Style by Michael Bush. So this is the book that we chose for this time round. We're really excited to read this one. There's been so much positive discussion about this on the group. I know since I joined, which was probably about 9 months ago now. And I know that a couple of the panelists had already read it, but I had to read it for this discussion. So we're going to be talking about our overall opinions in a second, but it was certainly a really exciting one for me to read. So joining me this evening, we can finally welcome back Daniela, who we've been waiting for a couple of months now. Hi, Daniela.
Hello, guys.
How are you? How's things?
I'm fine. I've been really busy, couldn't join last time. Well, of course, you are interested, and then I had to silence our messenger because I keep looking, and yeah, but I'm all back and I'm set.
That's good. Yeah. It's really great to have you back. And I know that you were keen to talk about your recent editions. I think you've been a little bit busy with your shopping over the last couple of months.
Yeah. I guess I overdid it a little bit because I still have so many books I did not have.
It's been Christmas, so you know.
And with the lockdown, I sit the Christmas at home. I was planning to travel for Christmas and New Year's, and I was stuck at home. And what did I do? Yeah. so that's the outcome here. What do you see?
Yeah. What have you bought?
Yeah. Okay. I bought some English books, and I like English language books, and I bought some German language books. I'm going to talk about translated books a little bit on because this King of Style, I have to talk about this. Well, what did I get? I inspired from Angie's post. I got the David Guest, Simply the Guest, and then I got the Jacksons from Joe Jackson and LaToya Jackson's book. I got Michael Jackson Rewind, and I got the Mark Bego, Michael on the road with Michael, and then because I got it really cheap, Michael Jackson Dancing the Dream in the German edition. Because after reading King of Style, I was really curious about the German edition, and all I want to say is, luckily, I only paid €2 for it. So whoever reads this Dancing the Dream in German, it's really childish and it's like a kindergarten book, and it absolutely loses everything on poetry and what amazes me in English in the German translation. But this is an ongoing problem. Okay, and then I got Michael Jackson, also a German version of Adrian Grant, which I already have the extended copy in English. And then I got a really mysterious book, Mysteries, also in German, of Michael Jackson. Mysteriums, I have no idea what's in it. Didn't read it yet. Yeah. So, and that's about it. And now I have to find my way back here.
Wow, you have been busy. Have you read any of them yet?
Huh? No. I'm still chewing. I lost my camera, guys. I don't know. Where are you? Yeah. Yeah. I'm still chewing on this, the first book of Michael, which really takes me lots of time because the language there is so difficult. It's so difficult. I have to look up so many words. Yeah. And then, of course, it's very interesting. So I keep coming back to, like, I have to watch this on YouTube and I have to find out this and this, whatever he writes in there. It's a great book, but it's really difficult to read if you're a foreign reader. But what I wanted to point out of my new editions, that's that one. It's in German. So if any German speakers watching, this is quite out a bit. I mean, you can find this, and I really recommend this to you. It's from the 1988. So that's still very positive on Michael. So, and having worked so much with Moonwalker, I can clearly see now, that is the base of this information is Moonwalker. But I looked it up, and Moonwalker was only translated in 89 into German. So I think this is like, they got the English book and they did the German one. It's so nicely done. Try to find it. You'll have fun with it, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. It's always good to get recommendations. Angie, how have you been? I know you've been pretty busy with work as well, but you've also been busy with trying to kind of reorganise your shelves, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I did a post of them, so I'm getting there. I've still got to go up and get the rest of them out the loft, so I've still got the opus and other things to pull down. But we're sort of putting all my books across. You've probably seen there's, I've got to count them, but there's quite a lot there, maybe like 60 or 70. I don't know. I'm just looking over to them now. So, and I haven't read them all, which you probably see on the Michael Jackson book club, because whenever I've got it, oh, have you read it? No, I've not read it. So, you know, I get them, I flick, I read a bit, then I get another one. So, yeah, but it's been nice. It's nice to have the display out.
Yeah, this happens to me now. I counted them. I've got 50 Michael Jackson books. Yeah, wow. Like I keep buying them, and I can't read that much. And yeah, and then of course there are the book club books to read and the sessions to prepare. And yeah, I wish I could be a full-time reader.
I know, we need to get paid for this for sure.
Yeah.
Angie, I know that before we kind of got talking in depth, one of our running jokes on the group was you could guarantee that if anyone recommended a book or if a new book came out, Angie would always comment and say, oh, thanks, I've just ordered it, every single time. And so it started being a running joke.
Right, I either got it or I'm buying it.
Yeah. Oh, and Nicole, how have you been? Your summer out there, as we can see, you're sitting outside while we're all, you know, freezing indoors over here.
Yeah, we're all complaining that it's hot over here. So yeah, lots of beach trips and fun in the sun, I suppose. Yeah.
And you've been a bit busy with your shopping too, haven't you? Since well, I know you got a few gifts for Christmas, and then you've
I did get a few gifts for Christmas, which I posted on the group. And then since the start of the year, I've ordered a few extras. I think I've ordered 6 so far, including the 2 new ones that I think everyone's really excited about, the King of Pop and I and Michael Jackson and Me, which I know a lot of people on the book club are talking about and are very excited about. Those 2, I'm really excited about reading those 2, because I think their stories will be really, really very interesting. Obviously the King of Pop and I will show some things that probably other books wouldn't, and I think Talitha's story in Michael Jackson and Me will just be, I don't know, I think I'll be imagining I'm her the whole time I'm reading that book, I think. So in that way, that one will be really enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to reading those 2. And I'm as bad as everybody else. I've got more books than I've read, obviously. So hoping this year to get through a lot of them.
I think the book club, it kind of does wonders for your mind, but not so much for your pocket, you know. We're all here for, yeah, we'll read them one day, and that's how I justify.
I'm
getting there.
Mike's just handed me this. These are the ones that are actually on my shelf. There's me underestimated. I said 50 or 60. I've got 250 on the shelves there. Magazines, but there's more in the lot. So that was a slight underestimation by me.
I totally agree.
I thought you were underestimating.
The book club doesn't do any good to that. Before I would buy a book, I read it, and then I buy the next book, then I read it. Now I'm buying books, not reading them, because I buy so many, because like David guessed what Angie said, yeah, oh, I see it, I buy it, you know.
Yeah. Look, we've all got to have a pleasure in life, haven't we? And this is obviously ours, so we shouldn't feel bad for it. Okay, so we're going to start with the quiz. So if you guys who are watching, could you make sure that you don't comment your answers? So make sure that you're writing them down or putting them in on your phone. And then as always, we'll reveal the answers towards the end of the session. So we've got 10 questions. Most of them are directly related to the book, but even if you haven't read the book, some of the stuff is kind of general knowledge really about Michael, so you might still be able to get the answer. But like I said, please don't comment your answers, just make a note of them and we'll give you the answers at the end. So question number 1, what was the name of Michael Bush's work partner who is mentioned in the book? So question number 1, what was the name of Michael Bush's work partner who is mentioned in the book? Question number 2. Which brand of loafers did Michael Jackson wear? Which brand of loafers did Michael Jackson wear? Number 3. It was stated in the book that one of Michael's favourite quotes was, "It is with such baubles that men are led." But who said that quote? So it was stated in the book that one of Michael Jackson's favourite quotes was, "It is with such baubles that men are led." But who said that quote? Number 4, the jacket used in Billie Jean on Motown 25 was borrowed. But who was it borrowed from? So the jacket used in the Billie Jean performance from Motown 25 was borrowed, but who was it borrowed from? Question number 5, how tall was Michael? That can be in feet or centimetres. So how tall was Michael? Number 6, at what event did Michael wear the Renaissance jacket? At what event did Michael wear the Renaissance jacket? Number 7, what brand of trousers did Michael prefer? What brand of trousers did Michael prefer? Number 8, why did Michael incorporate a magic trick into each tour? Why did Michael incorporate a magic trick into each tour? Number 9, what did Michael Bush do to the Smooth Criminal tie to help it have more swing? The only way I could really kind of form that question. It was a hard one to put into words, but if you've read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. So what did Michael Bush do to the Smooth Criminal tie to help it have more swing? And lastly, number 10, when the two Michaels first met, what did Michael Jackson throw at Michael Bush? So when the two Michaels first met, what did Michael Jackson throw at Michael Bush? So if you keep your answers somewhere safe, and we'll be giving you the answers to those towards the end of the session. So guys, let's start by talking about our overall thoughts and opinions on the book. Now, this is something that we normally do towards the end, but actually we thought it would be more appropriate for various reasons to kind of open the discussion with this. So Angie, if we can start with you, what were your kind of thoughts and opinions? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, I really like this book. I mean, I think one of the things we're not going to touch upon here, and probably, you know, refrain people from putting in the comments when you're watching this, is about the controversy. So that aside, this book is obviously something Michael wanted, created, the sort of behind the scenes of it. It's an absolutely beautiful book. The photographs are stunning in it, and I think it is a real learning process. There's lots to learn about him. There's lots to learn about the costumes, and it's just a really, really beautiful book. And I think, you know, what's nice is when you get books covering different elements. So obviously this is all on his clothes. So it's really nice, rather than, you know, you get those kind of tabloid books that are doing a bit of everything. So really, really beautiful book, lovely stories. There's nothing controversial in here, even if you've got opinions about Michael Bush yourself, but, you know, beautiful work that they did. And I think there's a couple of fans that you see, like Peggy Wolf and Majiki Jackson, and they do a lot of costume design themselves, and you can see the incredible amount of work they put into it. And just reading this, you sort of see all those elements, and incredible work. And I think I just said to you before, I actually wish this book was around years ago. I would have even paid even more attention. Yes, of course, you notice it, but I think you learn even more. So it's really nice, really good book.
Danielle, I know that you were saying just before we came on that the book, one of the first things that you wanted to do after having read the book was sort of go back and look at some stage performances and kind of, you know, see the stories of the costumes kind of in practice, if you like. And I think that, you know, there's various photo shoots and stuff that even I've kind of looked back on and feel, oh wow, you know, and even, which we'll come to, but even things like the inspiration for Remember the Time, I've kind of Googled that image of where that first came from, and certain books. I know, Angie, you were saying that you were looking into and researching one of the books that was an inspiration. So yeah, I think again, it's yet another it's another thing that brings so much more knowledge into Michael's work and his art that actually without this book we would never have known about. And you know, for that alone, I think it was just such a brilliant book. And actually this book, more than the other sessions that we've done so far, I think this was the book where I wrote the most notes. It just felt like every sentence that I was reading, I was finding out something that I didn't know. And it was just really fascinating to me. Nicole, how about you?
Yes, I completely agree with everything that you've both said so far. I loved the book, and I found it a bit of a journey when I was reading it. I kept going back and forth from reading about a particular outfit and then trying to find it on YouTube, whether it was in a performance or in a whether he was wearing it to an event or something, because I wanted to see him in that outfit. Obviously through the book you can see pictures of him, but some of the photos are obviously just of the clothes. So then I wanted to go and find him in those outfits. So in that way, it was quite a journey, and then looking up different things as well. But certainly, it's an absolutely beautiful book. It's a book you can kind of just browse through because the pictures are just beautiful, and I think it does offer us insights into parts of Michael's personality, but also, you know, that artistic side that other books don't, because it focuses obviously on the clothes, whereas, you know, there's not very many books out there that do focus on him, on his fashion. So in that way, the book's, you know, very important for his legacy in terms of the fashion part of his legacy. So I really enjoyed it from that perspective as well.
One of the most important things about this book as well, I mean, there are other books that deal with Michael's style and his fashion, but I think what was so important and so impactful about this book was that it was from like a first person source. It was written by someone who was there and who worked with Michael, and it wasn't just facts about, okay, well, you know, this was the inspiration for this outfit, and you know, he wore this outfit at this event. It was very much, you got a full insight into how the costumes came to be, the conversations that Michael had, his reactions to certain designs, and what, you know, exactly what he wanted, and how the costumes were presented to him, and all of these really quite personal sort of details and anecdotes that you just wouldn't have got from someone who, you know, was an outside source kind of just doing some research.
Yeah, definitely. You sort of, and even the little stories of particularly any pranks or jokes that Michael played on Bush, you got some of those little insights into, you know, different events throughout their time together that give you that sort of insight into their personality, into his personality as well, which is really cool.
Yeah. And Daniela, how about you?
Well, I had the same journey. I read and then I looked up at YouTube. I wanted to see the performance, what he's describing, what part of the costume was designed for what, and it all had a purpose. It all had a meaning, yeah, and it all had a message to send. And yeah, you look at concerts, however, you look at them in a different way now again, yeah, because you are aware of all these little and small things that are meaningful. I think the book itself, it is kind of majestic, yeah. It's really well photographed. The pictures are very clear, very good quality of pictures. The paper is thick, the whole book is heavy. There was no money saved. Like, they really tried to create that was something. And I don't know if it was the same with you, but after reading that, I asked myself, why did they put this jacket on the cover, on the front cover? Is it meant to be the most iconic one? I don't know. I couldn't figure out why this jacket on the front cover.
He mentions in some videos about this jacket, he was saying it was that kind of where he was obviously more involved, and it was this transition from the bad look going towards the dangerous look. So
Okay.
maybe that more meaning push about that. It's that kind of police badge, military, your zips from your sort of beaded jacket.
But then I want to go on with my overall opinion, because I said the book had no money saved on, but what they really seem to have money saved is on the translation. That was horrid. I mean, at one point, I contacted Nicole and I said, I'm writing you blah, 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 blah. Could you please tell me this and this page, what it is in English? Because I found it so offensive. And I found it like disparaging speaking, you know, and strong language, which I thought he would never use that. And well, and then I looked at more and more and more, and I said, well, this is what happens if you run a text to a translating machine. You know, I mean, Emma knows from language, there is one word and you could translate it in 5 different ways, and they definitely picked the wrong one. Yeah. So whoever is thinking about buying this book and not having it yet, I don't want to take anything away from you if you have it already, but try to find the English version. The English is not difficult written. Even if you need a translating book for one or other word, you will manage, and you have a so much better thing than having the German version. And I can only think that if it is in Spanish or whatever, it will be the same thing too. There was nothing spent on translation, that's for sure. Yeah.
I think.
Okay, I just wanted to tell this. Yeah, and I think it shows just another side of Michael Jackson, what wasn't really explored before. Yeah, and it shows how he managed to create this vision of bigger than life appearance. I could really clearly see that. This vision of bigger than life appearance. You follow through the process. I mean, this is not you get up in the morning and you say, well, I do it like this. No, it was a process. Yeah, and they went along all 3 in this. So I think it's a great book.
Did you want to add something to what Daniela was saying?
I was just saying that Daniela, I think, because I obviously saw your message to Nicole, I think one of the interesting things when you were saying about the translation coming across very differently was the story in there about Liz Taylor trying to find out what Michael was going to wear to her wedding.
Wasn't it horrible? I mean, this is when I stopped and I said, well, I have to clarify that now. I mean, I have to find out what's going on there, because this was just, this was,
yeah,
it cannot be. I mean, yeah.
It's quite sad to see. It obviously came across really badly, but it actually came across quite amusing in the English version, because it's very sort of Liz Taylor, and she's like,
yeah. And then Nicole went with, oh, he's very highly speaking, it's very highly speaking, and it's lovely. And I said, I'm not reading lovely here. So it was hard work, Nicole, wasn't it? No, typing all this down and checking. Yeah. Okay, so now, and I don't want to repeat what the description of Liz Taylor is in the German version. I just don't. No.
Yeah, they
much harsher word than in English.
They just missed the humor side of it, didn't they? It was obviously, if things were said in jest, and that's been missed in the translation.
Totally. And also, like, I mean, you can translate a sentence word by word, But if you look at the full sentence and you look at the person and you try to make the person match with the sentence you translate, you get a totally different picture. And so it has a totally wrong tone. The whole undertone of the book is just wrong, you know? Yeah.
What's really interesting about what
Don't get the German copy.
is, I feel like I say this every single session, but it is always relevant. But obviously, I am a linguist. I speak a few different languages, and even Michael says it. Well, Michael Bush says it about what Michael Jackson said in this book. It's the importance of language, and it's really interesting that, and kind of ironic, really, that, you know, one of Michael's philosophies, which was about getting a particular message across and getting it across in the right way, to have sort of stories and anecdotes about his work to be translated in such a way that it's actually completely changed the situation. And therefore, you know, like, obviously, Daniela, you're very you know, you speak English very, very well, so you can message Nicole and ask for that kind of comparison, and you can see the translation's not right. But, you know, for a lot of speakers from around the world who don't speak English, and therefore this book will have been translated into many different languages, and not just this book, but the hundreds of books that have been written about Michael, you do have to worry a bit about what people are reading and how certain things are being interpreted about Michael and his behavior and his language. And you know, you do sort of wonder how much of that might be not helping his legacy, if that makes sense.
No, it makes totally sense, because that's what I always think. You know, if you are not that if you are not that much like in Michael Jackson, if you are a fan but you're not going into the depth so much, and then you get this book and you learn about him, I mean, it's a really turn off. He would describe like that would be described like when, you know, he writes so nicely how Michael would try to get them to exceed themselves, yeah, and in the way he did it, you know, and it's described here like he was playing guessing games. He was playing guessing games,
which has a completely different connotation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I think that's
instead of like he pushed us for highest potential by doing this and this and that, you know, he played guessing games.
Yeah, that's a very negative kind of idea.
Yeah.
Which is the total opposite to what he was actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really nice point to go on to our first discussion point, because what we wanted to discuss for the first discussion point was, I suppose there's kind of two different strands to this. So we've entitled the first discussion point as Michael the Visionary, so Michael Jackson the Visionary. And we wanted to discuss firstly how Michael inspired the art that he managed to form within his clothing and his attire, but also I think it's really important to discuss and to continue the discussion on his relationship with Michael Bush, because, you know, I feel like in addition to all of the anecdotes and the amazing stories and the amazing pictures within this book, there were constant references to the positive influence and the positive messages that Michael Jackson put onto Michael Bush, and how he kind of really built him up to sort of exceed himself, which is, I think, what you said, Daniela, to just, you know, never stop pushing yourself, really, never stop kind of pushing your limits and always reaching for something better. And I think that Michael Jackson had a huge impact on not just Michael Bush's career, but actually his own realization of actually what he could do and what was possible. So I think that they had a I personally picked up that they had a very positive relationship.
I wrote this down because I found that so remarkable in terms of their relationship, working relationship, Tompkins and Bush, and I can only quote them. To us, Michael was a teacher who changed our professional lives in ways we never expected. The depth and complexities of our creations are often surprised us, and that was because Michael was our muse. That's it all.
I agree. I mean, I highlighted some really wonderful quotes. One of them was, Michael's creativity transcended anything Dennis and I thought could be perceived in reality. And when I read that, it really struck me of that quote that we referenced last month, sorry, not last month, but in the last session about Bruce Swedien. He said something almost identical, that Michael really showed him to think outside the box and to really start to try to envision the impossible and make it possible.
Yeah, there's a bit of a theme developing when you start to look at the different people that he worked with and how everybody seems to speak of, I think Bruce said something along the lines of, for our last session, when I think we highlighted this, that Michael brought out his best work. And certainly that same idea, I suppose, shines through in this book, where Bush discusses how Michael was able to bring that creativity out in them and make them do things that they didn't think were even possible. So there's obviously that trend that you start to see across the board with the people that he worked with, and how he was able to sort of not only inspire them but also empower them. I found that interesting, that there's both happening at the same time. So I really liked hearing about the just the little comments here and there that he would make to Bush and Tompkins. Things like, there's the story about just something that he wanted, and then their first reaction would be, well, I don't think we can do that. And then he would say, I know you can do it for me. Just sort of off the cuff little comments that sort of empowered them to believe in themselves and to take things that step further. And then obviously the little stories of like the Riddler. I think there's a section called the Riddler where he would just kind of plant little seeds with whether it be something he would make them watch or something he would make them go and see. And those little sort of seeds that he planted was kind of like became the inspiration for what they created.
Yeah, in one of his interviews, Michael Bush's interviews that I saw, he said exactly that. It was that here's this, the biggest star on the planet, and he believed in you, and that did empower you. And he says about that. I think like you said, the Riddler section and those little clues and watch this. It's being a teacher, isn't it? It's about getting you to do it yourself, so you're not just relying on what you're being told. You're being taught how to go and find that inspiration and look at things in a similar way. And I think quite a few people always reference about him being able to see anything quite what might seem ordinary with such wonderment. And it's that same thing you get through this book. You can look at something and really see it as something else, really see it with that wonderment and want to use that. Like, I think, the cutlery, the knives and forks and that on the outfit, right? There's something that people see every day, and putting it in a different context. So, that's really good.
Michael had a really good balance between sort of positively coaching, I guess, and inspiring the people that worked for him. But a quote that did stick with me, and again, this is another thing that I remember hearing from Bruce Swedien, and this is a direct quote from the book: "No was never an option for Michael. He would just find someone else who could." And I remember Bruce Swedien saying the same thing. He said this, I think it was one of the university talks that he was giving, and he said, if someone asked him what would happen if someone didn't sing good enough or something like that, and he said, oh, just get a new singer. And so I think Michael probably was actually, obviously because he was a perfectionist, as we know, he definitely had really high standards, and because of that he probably could be quite brutal in terms of who he sort of permitted to work for him. But at the same time, it wasn't just that kind of bluntness. He really did get them on board and make them believe that they could do it. And, you know, he managed to inspire them, really, rather than kind of be this dictator, like, no, I said you will do this, or if you don't do this, then I'll find someone else. Although that in his mind, that probably was the process. From lots of things that I've heard, I don't think he necessarily treated people like that or spoke to people like that. It was always very much in a positive light, you know, and he wanted to inspire them, and he wanted them to believe in greater things.
Well, there is another quote that goes along with that. I found that also quite important. They say his philosophy became our own.
Yeah.
His philosophy became our own. And that's what you hear, quite like through the cooperators, like how you say, collaborators. Yeah. And I think he would not settle with less, as his philosophy became the own of that person.
I really liked one of the many lessons that Michael taught Michael Bush, which was that as in people in general, our first instinct is the best one. And again, it's something that reminds me of a Bruce Swedien quote, because I remember him saying that he always used to, no matter how far down the line he was in his work on, let's say, a particular song, he would frequently go back to that first session that he did, or the first time that he produced something or created something to do with that song, because he really believed that that first idea and that first instinct should be the one that is constantly referred to. And I'd be really interested to know whether that was something that he learned from Michael, or whether that was maybe something that Michael learned from him. It's really interesting that within Michael's circle, you do tend to hear the same philosophies, the same kind of stories, the same kind of conversations. And it would be really interesting to kind of learn, you know, where the influences came from, and who said what to who, and when that all kind of happened. So yeah, I found that a really nice quote, and actually one that I probably would take on myself. You know, I think that a lot of people nowadays don't always trust their first instinct, but I mean, if Michael said it, then it must be true. Okay, so let's talk about Michael inspiring the art that was his attire. I think another thing that we learned a lot about in this book was sort of where the ideas came from. And obviously there's a huge focus in this book on, which I have to say I was very, very proud about, that he was obsessed with, you know, British culture and history. So yeah, that was a proud moment for me, and it was nice to see. I mean, I'm so proud to be British that I never actually realised this myself until I read the book. So I obviously don't even realise my own culture and history when it's being presented to me. But it was really cool to start looking into, you know, when certain periods in history, or you know, like you had the kind of fencing outfit mentioned, you know, when you kind of compare it, like, it's so obvious, and you think, oh yeah, of course that's from that period, and of course that, you know, he got that inspiration from there. But I think one of the naive things I think that you can do as a Michael fan is not realise, and I think we all know subconsciously, but it takes something like this book to bring it home again, that everything was done for a reason. You know, even me, I fell into the trap of seeing a costume and thinking, oh, that's really cool, but not really ever questioning about, oh, well, where did that come from? And there must be some big story behind this. It's never really, and yet every single detail and every single costume and every single thing that he wore even in his just kind of, you know, like loungewear, so non-costume wear, everything was there for a reason. I know Daniela and Nicole, we've had similar discussions in previous sessions about some of his stage performances, and, you know, maybe them being sort of a bit symbolic. But even, you know, down to his clothes, everything was there for a reason.
Except for when it wasn't, because that's when they tell you about the CTE on his arm.
Yeah.
So there's things like that. So the things that you think would have reason don't always have reason. That you're right, there is reason behind everything, but there's just those little moments. It was an interesting story about that, where it was literally letters in a hat, pulled it out, C, and then, oh, that didn't feel quite right, pick another one, T, and then E. So, you know, you can spend years trying to work out what he meant by that, and actually realise what it was.
But he sort of did have a reason. The reason was to get people thinking, you know, like even the things that had no reason, there was still a reason, if you know what I mean. Like it wasn't an overt symbol. It was, I need to keep them on their toes. I need to keep them thinking, make sure they're paying attention, you know, those kinds of messages that came through the book as well. And I mean, I remember being a teenager and being fascinated by the CTE and the just the little things, thinking, oh, that must be for this and that must be for that, and my little mind was making up my own reasons as to what everything was. So it was quite fascinating to read the book and find out that some of those things I was obsessing over really meant nothing at all.
No.
But it worked. I mean, it served its purpose, didn't it? And it worked because it got us all talking about it and thinking about it.
And I think he had a real ball when people were paying attention to it. I mean, I remember one interview, I don't know if it was Taj or one of the other guys of 3T, and they talked about the Band-Aid, I think it was TJ had around his chest, you know, and that was something Michael suggested him to have. And he said, why? I'm not hurt here. No, they'll talk about it. And so, so it was everybody wondering, why is he having this on? Yeah. They just give them something to talk about.
And I think what comes across in this with regards to like him as the visionary is where, you know, Michael Bush, and I don't know if it's all in the book or also when I've sort of watched interviews and that, where he said, you know, he very much didn't want designers, you know, just your Chanel was your Ralph Lauren kind of thing designing for him. He wanted his own. He wanted them to copy him, and we've seen that a lot more. I mean, you see a lot of the catwalks from sort of 2012 onwards. There's been a lot of Michael-inspired costumes that he did exactly achieve that. And I think that's interesting, where you see in the last sort of 2 years of his life, where Rushka Bergman is more doing his styling, then she's getting a lot more of the designers in. And to be honest, there's a lot more of the outfits then that I don't like as much. They don't work on him as well. So there's that one, I mean, there's a picture with her and he's very, very tiny. Obviously, so that's obviously another element, but it has the big shoulder pads that almost point upwards, goes very like that. And he looks better in the style of jacket that sort of Bush and Tompkins did for him. So I think that shows again when he was right, his original instinct to get those sort of design for him and him lead it. I see that. I mean, she was obviously great with him. She's really, really positive, and she does a lot of work with Paris now. But I think Bush and Tompkins certainly produced the best sort of clothes and outfits that he wore.
And you see that very often through the years, you know, just little things, little details on fashion items or whatever. I mean, just regular items too, like what I have here with these embroideries I bought in a regular store, and it was not even for young people, you know. And then you go, yeah, that's Michael Jackson style. And you don't have to be a fan to recognize.
Mm. Another thing that was funny that I heard Michael Bush say was about Michael's obviously obsession around the military style. And he said, well, you know, what woman doesn't like a man in military? So that's half your fan base covered. It gives authority. And you know, all men look good in military style outfits, and you know, there really is that. And obviously, I mean, we know through his costumes there is so much theme of a military style that went through sort of all the years. So again, you know, really thought into that.
I think one thing just to add to this visionary section is, you know, I think it's towards the beginning of the book, he talks about the 4 F's of dressing Michael Jackson. So there's fit, function, fun, and first. And certainly that first section needs to be mentioned here in when we're talking about MJ as the visionary, because you know, stories of sending Bush and Tompkins off to various places and studying the magazines and doing all those things that they did. It wasn't about being up with the trends. It was about knowing the trends so you can be ahead of the trends and things like that. And I guess it goes back to what you said before, Emma, as well, about how much thought went into it. And obviously you have to have a lot of thought going into it if you're trying to be the first to do something. But, you know, I think that being the first with everything is one of the reasons why he was so unique in his fashion trends, and why if we see something in a shop, like you just said before, Daniela, oh, that's, you know, that's Michael Jackson, and why he had such that unique style, I guess, comes back to that urge to be.
That brings me to our point we had, how important fashion was to Michael Jackson. I think fashion itself, like being a walk or being trendy, it didn't mean anything to him. He wanted to be the first. And he was not a fashionista, no, it was his own style. Yeah? Wearable art, that was the question, the word, wearable art. That's what he created. He didn't like go with the fashion, or this year it's yellow. No. So also as a private person, I mean, what he is describing, cotton pants and court red shirts, yeah, there's no fashion statement at all. Yeah, it's just like good to have. Oh, I found that so funny. The reason why he wanted to have that. Because if you have 100 of the same, nobody can tell you if you changed it. Oh, yeah.
Well, that with at home was identical, and that sort of ease. You hear that people say in books when they're sort of trying to tell you how to be productive with your time, and that's one of the things they say, sort of those basics, so that you're not wasting your time deciding that. And it's funny how obviously in his off-stage times, or he's not going out, then that's exactly that. Why does he want to waste time thinking about it? I'll have the red corduroy shirts, the pants, and you know, easy to do.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I really liked that related to, I guess, summarising what he wanted to achieve, is where it said that he wanted to be rebellious, to be couture, but to have street fashion. He wanted to avoid trends, to not follow the crowd. I want them to copy me. So that was the whole vision, really. In addition to, I think I'm going to jump a little bit, but it listed all the things that were really important to Michael when they were creating some attire for him. And it was leather, because that was related to being street, red, which was his favourite colour, which I always knew, but I never knew why. And it said apparently in the book, red was his favourite colour because red makes the pupils dilate. So even that, you know, there was a reason for that. There was just a reason for everything with him. So leather, red, zippers, so zips, because he liked clothes that made sound, and also anything that could attract light. Any mesh, again for the same reasons, for sound and light purposes. And then military, because it enhanced his frame and it gave him an air of control and authority. So kind of so much of the attire that was created over his, well, minimally with his period with Michael Bush, and certainly the majority of the pictures in the book, you can see how so much of the clothing was sort of constructed with those things in mind. So what were your particular favourite styles? Who wants to start? I know it's such a hard one. It doesn't have to be one, but maybe you could just mention
it really hard. I find it hard to choose. I mean, looking through the book, I tried to pick a favorite outfit and I just couldn't. Every time I look, I mean, I do like that white, which was his favorite, the pearl one that he wore to the 1993 Grammys. Thank you, Angie. I remember I was 13. I remember watching that Grammy Awards speech for the first time and just totally enraptured, I suppose, with every word that he said, but also what he was wearing. So that's, I suppose that has a nostalgic type of feeling for me when I see that particular jacket. That's one of my favorites. So I guess that military look is probably, I would lean towards some of those military jackets as well that are probably my favorite look.
Anyone else? I can share mine. I'm just looking for the bigger picture. My favourite, which is why I brought it up in the quiz actually, is the Renaissance jacket. I'm really sorry, I'm struggling to find the page. It's this one, but there's a better picture of him wearing it. But it was this one. Really loved that one so much. He's just dressed all in black, which again was a common theme. But there is a picture of him wearing that at Elizabeth Taylor's wedding. I can't remember what page it was on. I will find it, sorry. Has anyone else got any particular favourite outfits or style?
Well, I cannot tell you about a favorite outfit. I just cannot. I cannot, because they are also different in some way, but also same with the military jacket or whatever in another way. Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you my favorite pick. And that's the page 51. I mean, in the German copy, it's the 51. There are, on the bottom, there are different color gloves. Yeah. And then, I mean, the smaller pick in the right corner. It's just a peek into his wardrobe. And I looked really interested and then I felt a bit bad looking so interested in his wardrobe. But I found that yeah, there's the black pants and the red shirts. Just you find the Bal de Versailles, you find in the right corner. So that's correct. He really wore that. And then you find the little monkey with his drum in the bottom. So it's just so Michael. I mean, even if it wouldn't be in the book and you just show me this picture, I would say that's Michael's closet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit like Daniela. I can't pick a favourite because I mean, I love all the military outfits. I love all the detail. The Grammy, the Oscars with Madonna. I mean, all those things. You know, you vintage jackets, but also things like I think we've discussed this kind of offline. The outfits in things like Dirty Diana come together, and they're just really simple, but they look great. So I can't really pick. I like all of them, but I do, as I say, the later looks that he was going with Rushka were I didn't like as much. It was almost, there was quite a real sort of more of a feminine move in that. I prefer this. It's got that more sort of.
I'm the same with that too. It's just like yeah, but every era had its look, and he created that, and that was his look, and you cannot say that was better than the other one. Yeah. And I agree with you. These later outfits, they look like, I don't want to see that in a negative way now. It's just like play suits more. Yeah.
I also really like the bad outfit, you know, the bad tour outfit. I just found, you know, this picture is that.
Yeah, and
I know there's lots of different colors of that as well, the different colors, but I love the silver one. I know that, you know, and there's a slight variation as well, but the one I just showed, that's my favorite. And I think sometimes those outfits, in the same way that certain songs can throw you back to a certain point in your life when you first watched that tour, for example, and they can be special in those ways. But that particular outfit just sits very nicely.
And Michael Bush said with regards to that outfit, that is the one that was for the bed, and the bed in black. And it was, it's the exact copy, but it was just that obviously on stage, whenever he saw himself in black head to toe, it was that, oh, all they can see is a head. They've got to be able to see me move and see more. So he says that silver outfit obviously it's a direct copy of the other, but in silver instead of black. So,
is this the right point now to talk about the gold pants?
Daniela, any time is a good idea to talk about the gold pants.
I was just like, oh, when I read about this outfit, how it was created, yeah. And then I was reading, like, there was nothing about being sexiness, like showing what you have or whatever. There was no intention of that at all. And then I said, well, and I mean, he never intended that to be so iconic, these gold pants, what they really became. Yeah, going. I never went for that, because I had to be made aware from other people. This is when I first met the Gold Pants Appreciator Brigade, or whatever they call them. That was O2 Arena in London, when they were like standing in front of these gold pants, the only item behind of glass, and they went like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, first time like, okay. Yeah, also people going for that or seeing this in him, because I never saw, like, it was never like I perceived Michael. Yeah. Well, I guess if you want to see that, you can. Yeah.
I'm not so sure I agree with he never intended it to be sexy. I reckon he did.
I said in that book, you don't read anything, oh, I want to have something very sexy where all the women and gay men go crazy about, and they even put little video clips together in these pants and seeing what you can see and how big it is or whatever. When that costume was created, that was what was I say? Yeah. Of course. I mean,
I just was meaning that perhaps he you know, in the same way that this little story of ripping the front of his white t-shirts so the girls could see some cake, as he referred to it. I think that in part a lot of his outfits were always meant to you know, get that response. I think, you know, very figure hugging, and I know the figure hugging and the very tight was about showing off his dance moves as well, but I think that was always in the back of their minds to show off his body to a certain extent.
Yeah. But I mean, coming back to gold pants, from this costume, it was never mentioned in the book having that effect, or that they wanted to have this effect. No.
Although it did say that out of all of the costumes, that was the one that kind of caused the most discussion, let's say, amongst the fans. And of course, you know, that was always something that Michael wanted to achieve, you know, for whatever reason, whether it was people talking about it because it was sexy, or whether people were talking about it because they had questions, you know, why is he doing that? He wanted everything that he did, both in music and outside of music, to create a reaction. And those gold pants, even now, you know, we're in 2021, and even now people are still talking about those gold pants. So, you know.
Yeah. And you know, when you ask me what is the most iconic piece he had, the most iconic outfit, I can only say the gold pants. I'm not of this brigade, you know, but this is what, we talk about it now. We didn't talk about the single jacket, but we talk about the gold pants, and it's always talked about. And I just can recall this experience in O2 Arena. What is
I think of general public, though, the sort of the iconic are the things like the thriller jacket, the glove, you know, there's smooth criminal outfit. There's so many that are instantly recognizable. And even just like these, I've got these little badges on, and these are just of his outfits. You can see smooth criminal there. There's the thriller, the jacket, and then here Billie Jean and some others, and you instantly know who they are. And I think that's the thing with him as well. I know gold pants maybe for fans, but I think not so many non-Michael fans maybe are quite as well aware of the gold ones. But his clothes were truly, you can tell it's Michael straight away. Fedoras, all those things, the white socks, you know, it is truly iconic clothing.
I remember reading in the book about the introduction of the armband on his outfits, and saying that basically the purpose of that was so that people would know it was him, just even if they just had a picture of his arm, you would know straight away who it was. Yes, just every element all the time, it was, how can it get a reaction, how can I be recognized, you know.
I was just going to add to that, with you talking about the uniqueness with the armband, the section where he talks about the 7 patterns of Michael Jackson, the fact that so many of his clothes were all linked to only 7 patterns, it sort of lends to that very uniqueness, doesn't it? It's the reason why so many things we associate with, or anything that's close to any of those patterns, obviously we would say, oh, you know, that's definitely Michael. It makes his attire very unique when it's sits in a very small niche, if that makes sense.
Nicole, I'm just, in case people haven't read the book, I'm just going to list those 7 patterns, because it is really interesting when you read them, and again you start thinking about various outfits, you can really see how so many of the outfits, sort of are based around those 7 patterns. So you've got 1940s style casual trousers, Levi's 501 dance trousers, short military jacket cut to the waist, blazer suit jacket, a boxy jacket, i.e. The one that was used for Beat It, a show shirt, such as the one used for Dirty Diana or Come Together, and a casual shirt like the red corduroy. So pretty much all of his outfits were sort of created from one or more of those sort of basic patterns, which is quite incredible, because you think about, he did seem to have quite extremes, didn't he? I mean, his outfits, although the military style was pretty consistent, but you know, you sort of go from, I don't know, the red corduroy shirt or even the smooth criminal outfit to like the gold fencing thong outfit. Like they're just so out there, and they're just so different, which of course is one of the things that made him exciting. You know, he obviously, we all know that one of his philosophies was keeping people on their toes and kind of making people ask questions, and I mean, he certainly continued to do that with his fashion for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's on the fashion side, you can see where he talks about inspiration. So, you know, saying, oh, Michael didn't like sports, but he was interested about certain things. And obviously that's where you get like those knee pads and shin pads brought in. You see the medical element with the sort of the armbands, also like plasters on the fingertips to show them when you're performing, and using things like making I'll say trouser, I know obviously Americans say pant, trouser leg higher, so that you can see the socks, which therefore you can see the feet. So just lots of sort of function as well to it, and inspiration from sort of all over the place. And you've mentioned the fencing, which you know came more from obviously Dennis and Michael Bush, but it was that he taught them to look for those things, and they knew he'd like it because of it's an English sport related to kings and queens, which obviously he was fascinated with. So lots and lots of inspiration.
Just one little quick outfit that something that I didn't know about before reading this jacket here, which some people might recognize as the one that Kim Kardashian purchased. I think it was a couple of years ago now, and there was a little bit of, I don't know if controversy is the right word, but some Michael Jackson fans were a little bit upset about her purchasing it and giving it to her, I think 6-year-old daughter at the time, and she had it sort of tacked up and sized to fit the little girl. But what I found interesting reading in the book was that the lining of this jacket is actually blue. It's like a baby blue color, and the reason that it was blue was because I think he wore it 15th of February 1997 at Elizabeth Taylor's 65th birthday. But in order to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, as just sort of a little token to the birth of his son, they lined it blue. Well, it's like a baby blue color, just to sort of symbolize the birth of Prince. So I just thought that was, another little element to the clothing that, just little things here and there that had so much meaning.
Yeah, and Michael Bush says about that with the 777, says that, if it wasn't on the clothes, it was inside the lining or somewhere. That was something he often did, and that during the trial he had 3 cherubs in sort of over his heart on the inside of his clothes. So yeah, lots of meaning. He said for anybody who doesn't know, it's the 7th child, and if you add the 19 and the 58 together, you get the 77. So 777.
Yeah, just while you're mentioning the trial there, Angie, I was going to bring that up, the fact that throughout the book, there is no discussion at all about the trial outfits, even though if you do a little bit of reading or look up, there's a couple of YouTube videos even, which we can post in the watch party in the comments, where Michael Bush is talking about the outfits that he and Dennis made for Michael during the trial. And I wondered if perhaps he purposely didn't include them in the book because he didn't want to have, perhaps it was out of respect for Michael, not wanting to have anything to do with the allegations of the trial throughout the book. But I think it's worth noting just how amazing some of those trial outfits were, and that they went to so much trouble to make him a new outfit every day. I'll start to cry if I say 2 more, so I'll just leave it there.
I mean, that's it. I mean, I don't know, but I would imagine it's more out of, that's such a horrible period, isn't it? This is such a nice, but I mean, apart from, the end's still lovely, but I know, Nicole, it made you and I cry. I think the end bit, I can't go into detail, but obviously it's about dressing him to be buried. So that's obviously a quite difficult one. So I think possibly the trials, maybe not covered in there as well, but it's nice to know that obviously they were still looking after him and doing those outfits during
there's like 1 or 2 sentences in there at the beginning of page 189. I don't know if I'm referring to this page. Where he writes that it was still important for him how he looks like, but that's all about the trial. But this little paragraph, it's like heart-wrenching, and I think he didn't want to go in more of that. I mean, the end is hard enough. No?
Yeah, the end is very easy.
It is unfinished or something. If I translate that, it should translate to something that unfinished, the first paragraph. Yeah.
Before we go on to kind of things that we learned about Michael the person, because in addition to learning a lot about his art and his fashion, we did learn quite a lot about his character, and we heard some really lovely anecdotes, and we've already discussed some of those about the way that he kind of tried to inspire his workers and things like that. Were there any other additional comments that any of you wanted to make about sort of particular looks or outfits, or anything interesting that you found out about any of the costumes or anything like that? Is there anything that anyone wanted to add?
I just thought a funny story was just about obviously the white jacket worn from the Oscars with Madonna, just that he's you know, basically tried to find out what she was wearing. And I have to say, from all those years ago, seeing it when it happened at the time, I thought they had coordinated. And I was always like, oh, that's amazing. You know, you kind of got the king and queen of pop together, coordinated, but actually it wasn't that at all. You know, he told Michael Bush to go in and find out what she was wearing. They couldn't, but they did find the designer and they knew it was white. And then he was like, he's got to beat her kind of in her outfit. But I just thought they looked like they were completely coordinated, and it was brilliant. And I think that's a beautiful look when he went to the Oscars.
Just one thing I'd mention about this section is just, I don't think we've said anything like this yet, but just his eye for spotting things and some of those outfits that just he happened upon by chance. For example, in the book, it tells the story of the Dirty Diana outfit and how it just kind of, it was Bush that was wearing that white shirt. And I think Michael's comment to him was, "Bush, your shirt is winking at me." And then they kind of slapped this outfit together. So it wasn't even a planned one, but so just that eye for seeing it and spotting it. And interestingly, I'm not even sure where I read this, but I read recently about the Thriller front cover. So that the suit that he's wearing on the front cover of Thriller was actually the outfit that the photographer was wearing to the photo shoot. And Michael had all these outfits to choose from, literally dozens of outfits, and he wasn't happy with them. And he turned to the photographer, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he said, "Can I have something like what you're wearing?" And they ended up literally switching clothes, and that's what he wore on the front cover. And to think that that's, you know, the biggest selling album of all time, that's a pretty famous outfit, and it just was something that the photographer happened to be wearing. So that eye for spotting things is pretty good.
Well, it's like spotting things in his mother's wardrobe as well, isn't it? It's like the Billie Jean jacket. So, you know, God, you couldn't imagine sort of doing such an iconic performance and it just being borrowed from your mum. So certainly.
I think as well with the bad jacket, the one that's used for the photo shoot, he spotted that while window shopping, and they just kind of added the straps and buckles and stuff. But you know, he was just, I think the quote that stood out for me the most, I just think it really impacted me. And although again it's something that I already knew, it's something that really just, I don't know, it did impact me a lot. And it said everything had to be perfect, and that was one of his biggest demons. And I think it was the same with, I think there was two elements to what were his demons. I think one of them was that he had to be a perfectionist, but I think the other thing was his creativity. I mean, his brain just never ever switched off. And whether it was music, whether it was performances, whether it was his fashion, whether it was the media, like just constantly, his mind just never stopped, and he was just constantly, you know, thinking about how can I be the best, how can I achieve this, and how can I make people think this, and how can I outdo this person. And I know people have said it before that, you know, we've had stories from, you know, other books, other authors, other people that were close to him, that he just never slept. And obviously we know that that's you know, unfortunately that is a thing that we know to be true. But I just think that even with fashion, and it's just never an element that I really even had considered until I read this book, even with that, he was so set on perfecting that as well, you know. And I just think, wow, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad I didn't live in his mind, because I think it would be a very difficult place to be in.
This is exactly what you said. Well, I was thinking reading this. Like I always have like this one sentence from Lisa Marie in my ear. He was a force. Yeah, he must have. This is also something like he must have been. Yeah, and this is exactly what you said, Emma. I think it would have been already also difficult to be like whole time around him. I mean, how are you going to live with this? Like being his wife, like Maria, like
Lisa
yeah.
Marie.
Lisa Marie. No, I wanted to say something else. Like Lisa Marie was. He said he was a force, and he could use it for good, and he could also use it for bad. The same force. Yeah. And everything I read something like this now, like this book now, it gets more and more clear to me what she means by this, you know, because this is a lot more meaning that we could understand about this person, about being this force, how big this force was. Yeah. Get the point what I want to say?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so again, this leads quite nicely into the next discussion point, which was what we learned about Michael the person. So are there any sort of funny little anecdotes maybe that that you read and enjoyed that hasn't been mentioned yet, or anything just in general that you perhaps learned about him and his character that perhaps you didn't know before reading the book?
I wouldn't say necessarily didn't know before, but I think it just reiterates a lot of things. So, and it has already sort of been mentioned, but those sort of the riddles, the pranks, we know that about him. But as well, I think you see in here how he uses sort of riddles as a real learning technique for others, not for himself, but to really get other people really getting their brains ticking over, and rather than just giving them the answer, forcing them out there. So I think all those, you know, his playful side, just all of those kind of elements, and the kindness, there's lots of things. You know, obviously where he gave away clothes as gifts, and sometimes, you know, Bush sort of says how he'd spent sort of weeks and weeks, him and Dennis, making something, and he just gives it away, and that's where they learn, you know, always make more, always photograph everything so you're ready to make more of these in case he gives them away. But his generosity, you know, his real clear perception on how intelligence around things like clothes, how everything works together. So I just think probably not necessarily anything new, but I just think, again, it's just all those same themes from people who do genuinely know him, unlike, you know, people who write books and it's just him as a research topic. When it's those who actually know him, all those themes come through each time.
I have to say, I learned something new I didn't know of. I learned how, like, what a great mentor he was. You know, well, I knew he worked with people and he always tried for the best or whatever. But what kind of mentor he was, and that was also professionally very interesting for me because I work as a coach. Yeah, and yeah, like how he did that. Yeah, how he showed, how he believed in the ability of the people, and yeah, that was something new to me. Like the tools he used. Never heard about that before.
Yeah, I think if you, I don't know if you've read it yet, Daniela, but say like Frank Castillo's book, you get a lot of that, because like mentoring kids and teaching, and, you know, I mean, we obviously all know because we're part of the book club about his extensive library. I mean, he had an awful lot of knowledge and that he would then impart onto others. So yeah, something else incredible. And he was about that sort of sharing those things. He wasn't someone to just keep everything to himself. He would pass it on to others and you know, spread that learning opportunity.
I was totally aware of this, Angie. Yeah, but if it comes to coaching and mentoring, he had a really special way doing that. He's like, yes, you can have a big library, and yes, you can tell people what you know, but he has a totally different approach to it. He did not tell people what he wanted or what he knew. He made them find out themselves. And that's quite a thing for somebody who doesn't do it professionally, who never trained on it. Yeah, I find that amazing.
I know Michael Bush said in the book that, you know, how emotionally intelligent Michael was, and that's one of the reasons that he would always prefer to have, you know, he would call people at sort of 2-3 o'clock in the morning, but quite often he wouldn't particularly for something that was important or for an idea, he wouldn't really like to talk about over the phone, because he liked to see their body language and their expressions, because he could really read people. He could tell when someone was bored with an idea or whether they were excited. And even if the person thought that they weren't expressing those emotions, you know, Michael was very and this is something else that I feel that this book has reaffirmed for me, is that, you know, I've heard on quite a few occasions how intelligent Michael was, but just how intelligent and the fact that he was so well read on so many different topic areas. I mean, I'm sure that some of it was kind of innate, and it was just very, you know, a natural ability to do it. But I mean, we know some of the sort of books that he read, and his dedication, I guess, to just being, I really feel like he was just dedicated to being this perfect person in every possible way. He was dedicated to being a perfect musician, a perfect performer, a perfect colleague, a perfect boss, a perfect dad, you know. And yeah, I think for someone of that status to dedicate so much time into not just perfecting things for himself, but to perfect things to have such a positive impact on other people, I think that's something that, and I know we're going to be talking more about sort of his legacy in a little while, but I think that's something really important actually that people should know about.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry, Nicole. I was just going to say, sorry. He was, you know, he's clearly sort of a very intelligent man who soaked. I think one of the quotes, I don't know if it was Taylor said it in an interview about him, or Sophia Loren, about him being a sponge and from a young age. And you obviously, we know that, and we read about, you know, him always watching and studying. And I think he just picked up so many aspects from things, from studying from such an early age in a different way than, you know, we study, we go to school. He was really watching others and mastering all the bits, you know, and you see all those elements. You see James Brown and stuff, you see Fred Astaire, you see Frank Sinatra, and you know, he really was soaking. And it's that, the guy who wrote the Michael Einstein and Me, he said it in his interview, I think, with the book club, very much about that sort of wonderment and looking through with those child eyes and that sponge element that maybe some of us we lose as we get older. He really kept that, and really broadens on all of those aspects, and you can see it certainly in the clothes part.
Yeah, that actually leads nicely into what I was going to say about that the childlike side, and I really enjoyed reading that. I think that's shown through in the book quite a lot, is that sort of fun, playful side of his personality, childlike side of his personality. And I loved hearing the stories of, you know, playing that annoying little brother role, zip with his any zips that were on his clothing, just to and chewing loudly on his gum just to sort of irritate people. But then I also liked hearing the fact that for Bush it wasn't irritating because he loved to see him enjoying himself so much. But it just shows that, you know, his ability to see the magic in little things, in simple things. Like, you know, most of us couldn't care less what the zip does. But for him, it was, you know, something fun to play with. And yeah, I really liked hearing some of those stories. And I also, you know, not necessarily something new that I learnt, but I liked the way the book pointed out some of the contrasts of MJ. So with clothing, for example, you know, he had his performance clothes that were very tight fitting, flashy, that type of thing. But then, you know, his private clothes, or the clothes he wore off stage, were you know, very baggy, not necessarily anything flashy to them. And then the shoes, you know, everybody was always at Bush apparently to buy him or get him in some sort of designer shoes, but he wouldn't budge from the shoes he'd always worn since he was a child. And then, you know, he always had his plain white tees as well, which were very contrast to some of the other extravagant outfits that he had. So, I mean, that's something we're aware of, but it's, you know, the contrasts in his clothing kind of reflects his personality personality to a certain extent. You know, you see that fun, playful side, but he obviously had a very serious side to him as well. So there's a lot of contrasts that the book highlights.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just to finish off by sort of elaborating on what you've just said, really, even with his character and his personality, I feel that that was really contrasted as well in this book, as actually it quite often is. There's this very playful side, but then there's the other side of Michael that's just super intense. You know, the fact that he would go and do a show, and this is an anecdote that's mentioned in the book, that, you know, after every single show, he would go back to the hotel, have a bath. There would be like a dinner brought to him, which he would rarely eat because obviously he didn't have much of an appetite, especially with all that adrenaline and stuff, which he apparently it took days to kind of for him to get that out of his system, which is why he couldn't sleep. But, you know, you've just done like, you know, what, a 3-hour show, plus you've probably had rehearsals in the day, and then like 1-2 o'clock in the morning after you've had this bath, you're sat there watching a recording of that performance that you've just done, and you're just self-critiquing, and not just self-critiquing, but critiquing, okay, well, he's playing the guitar behind my head, so, you know, next time I need to move here, or he needs to move out. I mean, even that, how tiring must that be? You know, you've just done essentially our equivalent of a hard day at work, and then you go back and essentially watch your day, you performing at work during that day, and noting all of the things that were wrong with it. So it's just, I always find it interesting how in certain ways he was like, even to take another contrast, in certain aspects he was like really spontaneous. I didn't realize how spontaneous, particularly in his performances. I mean, it said that, you know, during performances he would just feed off the crowd and run with it, and, you know, there would be certain things that weren't kind of stuck to the plan, but then there were other elements, like when he does the magic tricks, that like it had to be done in like 11 seconds flat, and he just seemed to very much, I feel he was a very contrasting character. It's really interesting, and that's why, you know, even when I have discussions with people who are not as involved with Michael as we are, you know, like you'll make a statement and then they'll say, oh no, but he wasn't like that because, you know, he dances like, you know, like one of the examples that I'll give is when you'll get half of people who don't really know about him say that he's not very sexual at all. He seems to be sort of asexual in terms of, you know, obviously we know better, but from what they're presented with, you know, he never sort of did the whole groupie thing, which I'm sure he did, but, you know, in the public domain, he didn't do that. He never really kind of spoke about that side of things. He always came across as being sort of quite innocent. But then on the other hand, if you look at some of his performances, you know, they're very sexual. So it's just, but again, everything he did was for a reason. So I just feel like that was created on purpose. That was yet another example of him making people question him, which, you know, like I said, all these years later, they still are, where people are still having those discussions and those debates. So yeah, I just found that really interesting. Okay, so to finish off, our last discussion point was talking about his Michael's legacy. So what has Michael's lasting influence on fashion been? Obviously, we've already kind of touched upon that. And also, kind of, if we we're going to flip it around, to what extent is fashion a part of Michael's legacy? So what legacy has he left on fashion, but then also how has fashion played into his legacy as well?
Yeah.
I think, oh, sorry. I think sometimes perhaps the fashion is maybe an underestimated part of his legacy. A lot of his influence has been quite sort of subliminal, I suppose, and maybe a lot of people, I think fans recognize it and realize the influence. but non-fans perhaps don't realize just how much his outfits over the years have influenced fashion and are still influencing. And I always like to see, you know, the particularly music artists, even still now, wearing outfits that kind of are nods to outfits that MJ wore. So, like, you know, Lady Gaga's Super Bowl outfit was Michael's Rock With You outfit. Beyonce's worn an outfit that was very much like, you know, what he wore at the beginning of the Dangerous tour. I mean, I could list so many. His influence is obviously, well, like we said before, he was a force. So the influence in fashion is certainly there, and perhaps an underestimated part of his legacy, or not something that non-fans are necessarily aware of. So I think there's that side of it, but there's also that, you know, I'm not sure I'm going to word this correctly, but just that there's that strong connection to his music and his songs, like particularly for fans, obviously. He was a master at connecting the dots, I suppose. So when we hear a song, we can see him in an outfit. Do you know what I mean? Like, you kind of, I can't listen to Smooth Criminal and not imagine him in that outfit. I can't hear the start of Jam without imagining him jumping out of the stage at the beginning of the Dangerous tour. There's just so many outfits that are so iconic and so connected to his music that it's almost sort of, his fashion and music is synonymous in terms of his legacy. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I think you're right, because as you say, I mean, anything, and even just for people who aren't really fans, like, I think I've touched on it before, but, you know, everybody knows what a white glove, the fedora, everything, and you see those, and like you said, there's loads of artists now, and we're seeing catwalks still being inspired by him, you know, and he's obviously been gone for quite a while now, yet he's still causing inspiration. And I think one of the things that's notable is really there aren't many other stars who you have that connection with fashion as much. So I can think more like Lady Gaga, and then obviously we also know she did buy a lot of Michael's clothes because she knew that importance of stage wear, and that's, so, you know, I remember hearing a radio interview about her asking her dad, phoning her up, can I use $1 million to buy a number of his, because she wanted to look after it. Now, she's somebody very iconic with fashion, but yes, I can think Madonna with the sort of the cones, but there isn't too much with her. Yet Michael, there's a lot of looks that are extremely iconic. So I think more than most stars, yes, you've got Elvis with his jumpsuits, but again, you know, there's loads of looks. You could just see a silhouette of something. I think everybody who's not a fan knows that's Michael Jackson. You look at, you know, a fedora taped, white glove, white socks, the shoes that are, you know, on your toes and the shoes, those kind of things. So there's a hell of a lot there.
Yeah, I also cannot think of another artist who made his own fashion so much his own than Michael did. Yeah, I just cannot think. There is none. And I go very much with Nicole. I mean, you hear a song, you think about an attire, or you see something, and then you know the song. I mean, to knit that so close, yeah, like his art in music and his art in clothing and fashion. That was never there and never will be there again. I don't know. At least at the moment, I know nobody. You? No.
That's it. I think, Nicole, because you just bought a Thriller jacket recently, I think if you wear that, people would straight away start singing that song to you. So you're right, it's that connection, isn't it? You don't have to say anything. Everybody immediately knows, you know, fan, non-fan, whoever would know that and would straight away connect it with a song.
Okay, great. This has been such a wonderful discussion, and I really loved the book. I think, as we all did, really fascinating, just full of really sort of interesting new information, a lot of which I didn't know. And Angie, actually, you have something else that you wanted to show to kind of complement the book, didn't you?
Yeah, and it's just the Julian's auction one. I think they still sell it possibly, but that's, I mean, it's got lots of sort of the outfits, but other items in there. But that's just another nice one. Obviously, the same jacket on the front there as on the King of Style. But yeah, just lots of those lovely outfits and other jackets. Yeah. Lots of the clothes. So I mean, I think it's still for sale. Lots of the sketches as well that are behind outfits on there that you can see. And they're even on that bottom one. You can see them doing this sort of the electronics into there, you know, for any lighting and things like that. So
Angie, at the time of the auction, or did you buy that later?
No, I did buy it at the time of the auction. Yeah, I've actually got 2 copies because I tend to have one so that when I'm looking through them, if they get a bit damaged, and then one that I keep nice.
This is why you've got like 250 books or whatever. Just buy doubles of everything.
Possibly. Not everything, but yeah, certain ones.
Okay, so now what we'll do is go through our quiz answers, and then that'll be it, I guess. So quiz answers, number 1, what was the name of Michael Bush's work partner mentioned in the book? It was, of course, Dennis Tompkins. Number 2, which brand of loafers did Michael wear? Now, I'm going to embarrass myself here because I don't know the pronunciation, if it's Florsheim or Florsheim. Does anyone know?
I thought but
I think it's Floorshines, but don't be embarrassed because I've thought the same thing so many times myself, because I think it's something I only read.
Florsheim.
There we go. Perfect. I should have put you to do the quiz this week, Daniela.
Yeah.
Number 3, one of Michael's favourite quotes was, "It is with such baubles that men are led." Who said that? It was Napoleon. Number 4, the jacket from Motown 25, the Billie Jean performance, was borrowed, but from who? It was, of course, from his mum. How tall was Michael? He was 5'10", which I believe, according to Google, translates into 177 centimetres. So, you know, not overly tall for a man, but one of the reasons why he wanted to create so much more height and, you know, a much larger frame, because he was very thin, not overly tall. So yeah. Number 6, at what event did Michael wear the Renaissance jacket, which was the photo that I was trying to find in the book, but I will post it in the comments. It was Elizabeth Taylor's wedding at the Neverland Ranch. Number 7, what brand of trousers did Michael prefer? It was the Levi's 501. Number 8, why did Michael incorporate a magic trick? It was to allow for a wardrobe change without having to stop the show. So he would kind of do the disappearing act, and while the show was still going on, he would be behind the stage getting changed. Number 9, what did Michael Bush do to the smooth criminal tie to help it have more swing? It was to attach a coin on the inside of the bottom bit. Again, I will attach a photo to the comments so you can see what I'm referring to if you haven't read the book. But essentially it was when Michael was doing his spins, the tie was kind of just staying here, but he wanted it to kind of swing round with him. So they had to make the bottom part of the tie sort of a bit heavier so that it would have more movement. And number 10, when the two Michaels first met, what did Michael Jackson throw at Michael Bush? This is actually an anecdote that we haven't really discussed, but it is a great story of how they met. And basically Michael Bush was like super nervous, and he entered this room where Michael Jackson was on his own, and there was just like a load of food. And I think Michael Jackson was stood on one side, Michael Bush on the other, and like no one was saying anything because it was just super awkward. And so then Michael Jackson just threw a cherry and basically just started this big food fight to kind of break the ice. And again, I think that's quite a nice example again of how Michael was using his, I guess, emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, whatever, to kind of break the ice and make somebody feel comfortable, you know. So yeah. So let's know how you did. Sorry, Nicole.
I've heard other collaborators tell similar stories. I can't think of the name of someone at the moment, but it was on an episode of the MJ cast about being nervous and being on set. And I know I'm going to have to talk to Michael Jackson, and he just started a food fight with this person and broke the ice, and then it was all sort of smooth sailing from there. So I wonder how many times he actually used that tactic.
Well, it obviously worked.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next session, I will confirm the date in the comments, but the next session is going to be in February, and it's going to be on Humanitarian by Paul Dwyer, which again is a book that I haven't read, so I'm really excited to read that one. I know that Tammy, Steph and Jeanette relatively recently did an interview with Paul. So if you haven't seen that yet and you'd like to watch that before our session, then that will be available. I think it's available on the Facebook group and on YouTube as well, on the Michael Jackson Book Club YouTube group. So go and check that out. It was a really interesting interview, and it'd be kind of good to get some inside knowledge before or after the session. So I will confirm that date. But otherwise, it's goodbye from us, and we'll see you next month for our next session.
Bye.